Okay, but I do want to talk about the substance, I guess, to what Scott Walker was saying, this idea that they should consolidate around one candidate. Like, we sort of understand why some of the donors might want that because they don't want Trump to win, but should they actually drop out? And if so, who should begin dropping out? Well, we have one of the candidates who surprisingly does not think that he's one of those who should drop out.
Listen, I don't share his view. I don't think there's anything dangerous going on. I think, fact is we're having a competition. And the competition of ideas and personalities and approach and vision will be what will determine this. And that's what I was trying to say in the debate the other night.
Now, it would be easy for him to think that Walker might be lumping him in with the other candidates, because imagine if Christie was to drop out, then Fiorina and we'll say maybe Rubio could split his 1.8%. And then they would rise a little.
No, but so here comes more unbearable bragging. In the brackets that we did before this whole process got started, I had Christie beating Scott Walker in the brackets.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought at one point you were super hard pushing Walker.
No, that was Steve-O.
Was it Steve-O?
Yeah, and I said he has a real possibility. And at one point, I had him among the top candidates because both Adelson and the Koch brothers were backing him. Okay, so that was like, whoa, this is real, right? And but I had Christie beating Scott Walker, and it turns out exactly for this reason. I mean, I don't know that I thought it through in this specific way, but because Christie's more of a fighter, so he's just going to stay in, and he's like, oh, Walker dropped that, great, I'll stay around. Maybe I get lucky, and I'm one of the few guys left against Trump, and then the mainstream comes back to me because in the beginning, the mainstream Republican establishment, before he ran into all the scandals, loved Christie, right?
That's true.
And he's just going to stay in there and fight and fight and fight. He's not going to listen to the people telling him to drop out. So, and I think he's largely right. If I was Christie, I'd stay around. But like, hey man, I wasn't doing very well when there were 17 people in. Maybe I do a little better when there's only 4 people in.
Yeah, gets up to like 2.6.
Yeah, and now finally that goes to what kind of a person Scott Walker is. He's not a leader. He said, that he, basically prayed on it and he talked to higher sources. Yeah, the higher source he talked to was the Koch brothers. And that's exactly what he is. He's their water boy. He said, yes, sir, can I get you something, sir? He's their butler, right? And so when the master told the butler to leave the room, he genuflected out of the room. He backed away slowly. So that's who Scott Walker is. He's the butler for the billionaires. Yeah. So when commanded from a higher source to do what he's supposed to do, that's exactly what Scott Walker does.
Yeah, and he didn't just back out, but while backing out, he didn't even wait until he was interviewed the next day. He delivered the message that the rest of you need to flee as well.
That's right.
He couldn't even wait a day. Why don't we talk a little bit more about what got us to the point where we're at, where he flamed out, even though some people like Steve-O thought that he would do quite well.
Yeah, all right, hold on. Before we get to that, I'm not done yet. and this time now I'm back to the bragging, but not the substance. And I'll tell you why. My bragging has a point.
I think I know what the point is.
Right. No, but if you yesterday made the mistake of turning into mainstream media when Scott Walker dropped out, would you have gotten the analysis that turned out to be exactly right? You wouldn't have, because they don't talk about money in politics. They don't talk about the donors. They don't talk about the enormous influence that they have. They don't talk about any of the stuff that's real, that actually makes a difference, right? We talk about it. And again, I'm not a fucking rocket scientist, okay? I'm not a scientist of any sort. If you watch the show, you're very aware of that, right? It's just you follow the money. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. That's why I was right about this. That's why my analysis, honestly, is 1,000 times better than anything you'll see on TV, because I do the one thing that makes sense. I follow the money. And they go, what money? Money? No, there's no money. I don't know what you're talking about. Scott Walker lost the debate of ideas. Come on, turn that shit off.
The only caveat that I would place to that is you can look at someone like Walker, he's propped up by money, and you can look at where the money is going, where it's coming from, and you can learn a lot from that. But you do have to understand that there are thankfully, some limitations to money still in our elections, in that the primaries in general are not as driven by ad expenditures and things like that as the general campaign is. That's why Trump is able to win, despite the fact that he's not spending incredible amounts of money, and despite the fact that the donors don't support him. It's that in the primary, xenophobia can carry you very far. Maybe not the whole way, but it can carry you very far early on. And we saw that in the last cycle too, by the way.
Right. So that's an important caveat that John is making, and it's so important that it really does bear repeating, that presidential races are very different than most of elections. So nobody's paying attention to a Senate race in Montana. Nobody. You can easily buy that election. The only thing that's going on in that election is TV ads.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you spend money, you get the candidate and the product that you want. In presidential elections, Donald Trump's not spending a lot of the money because he's grabbing all the free media, all the attention that all the different media organizations are giving him, right? By the way, a tiny recipient of that is also Bernie Sanders. He does not need as much money as Hillary Clinton to win in a primary or even certainly in a general election. So that is an enormous exception that is obviously so important that sometimes it clouds people's vision of it. But Scott Walker was in the presidential race, so why doesn't he follow the caveat? So therein lies the difference between Walker and Christie. So Walker is strictly a water boy. He follows orders. The Koch brothers tell him to crush the unions, he crushes the unions. The Koch brothers tell him to get the fuck out of the race, he gets the fuck out of the race. He goes, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. He's used to just delivering on exactly what he promised for what he got paid for, right? Yeah. Now, whereas guys like Christie are like, yeah, I hear you, but I'm going to hang out for a little bit, okay? And don't worry. I'm a good product. If I get in, I'm going to deliver for you, so you keep giving me that money and I'll get reelected and we'll do all the things that we normally do. But in the meanwhile, I'll let the other guys drop out first because I understand the dynamic a little bit better, and he has, honestly, just a little bit more fight in him than Scott Walker does.
Yeah.
So you see, like, for example, Huckabee won't drop out. Huckabee's not relying on large donors. So the large donors, especially the finance guys, are scared shitless by Huckabee with his fucking crazy religious talk, right? Yeah. So Huckabee not relying on them and relying on free media and his Christian evangelical base will hang in there for a long, long time. So that's now the people. The people dropping out first are the ones who are the most willing to do exactly what the donors tell them to do. Rick Perry made a living in Texas. He got 1.5 brain cells to rub together. All the reason Rick Perry was governor in Texas, I mean, he's dumber than George Bush, is because he said to the oil guys and all the industry guys in Texas, what do you need me to do? Here's a blank piece of paper. You tell me, you write what you want me to do, and I'll do it. And so when he was getting embarrassed in this race and the donors told him, gid, he was like, yeah, okay, I'm gone. That's what unites Rick Perry, Scott Walker. So whoever drops out next, you'll know is also an enormous water boy for the donors.
You think possibly Rubio?
No, Rubio's doing well. So
yeah.
No, a lot of the money is now pouring into Rubio. I'm surprised by how much money's
pouring into Rubio. And I've heard that Carly Fiorina is starting to raise a lot more, too. Which begs the question, then, who will be the next establishment candidate to drop out, then? Unless Jeb is just so low energy that one day he doesn't wake up in time to make the debate. Or something like that.
You know, I know we're taking too long on this, but
I know, sorry. It's interesting.
No, but it's a super interesting dynamic. Because then there's the other guys. There's so many people in the race that they all fit into slightly different buckets. There's the Patakis and the Gilmores of the race who are only running to get their speech, bills up from $10,000 to pay for a paid speech.
They want the recognition.
Right, to $20,000 for a paid speech, right? They have no illusion that they're going to win or become vice president or do anything. They're just running so they can get tiny media attention. They have no incentive to leave quickly.
Yeah.
Eventually, they don't want to be overly embarrassed. They'll leave right before Iowa or right after Iowa.
Right after, yeah.
Right. So, and the Santorums and the Huckabees of the world are just the religious. Yeah, Cruz is a madman. He's not going anywhere, right? So then, okay, let me, during the break, I'll put my thinking hat on who the next guy is going to be to drop out. Okay.
I will guess as well.
Okay. And that'll be fun. Oh, God help you if I'm right.